Summary of Fairy Tale written by Stephen King. Chapter 1. In the heart of Century's Rest, nestled amidst the quiet streets and gentle river bends, lay the little Rumple River, a serene ribbon of water that meandered through the town. For years, an old wooden bridge stood as a silent sentinel over its waters, a relic of times gone by. It was a bridge that bore witness to the passage of generations, carrying the weight of countless footsteps and whispered secrets. But change is inevitable, even in the most tranquil of places. And so it was that in the year 1996, the old wooden bridge was deemed unsafe by state inspectors, prompting the decision to replace it with a sturdier, more modern structure. Thus, the Frank Ellsworth Bridge was born, a testament to progress and a symbol of hope for the future. Yet, as with all changes, there were unforeseen consequences. For one young boy, whose name was Charlie, the construction of the new bridge marked the beginning of a journey that would shape the course of his life in ways he could never have imagined. Charlie was a quiet child, with a mop of unruly hair and a penchant for daydreaming. He lived halfway up Sycamore Street Hill, a stone's throw away from the newly constructed bridge. His world revolved around the familiar sights and sounds of his neighborhood, from the quaint little gas and convenience store on the other side of the bridge to the comforting hum of life as it passed by his window. It was on a seemingly ordinary day that tragedy struck, casting a shadow over Charlie's once idyllic existence. His mother, a radiant presence in his life, set out one evening to buy fried chicken from the store across the bridge. Dressed in her favorite raincoat, she waved goodbye to Charlie and his father, unaware that it would be their final farewell. As she made her way across the steel bridge, a plumbing truck skidded on the icy surface, hurtling towards her with terrifying speed. In the blink of an eye, Charlie's world was shattered as he watched helplessly from the window, his heart breaking with each passing moment. When the dust settled and the chaos subsided, all that remained was the harsh reality of loss. In the days and weeks that followed, Charlie and his father struggled to come to terms with their grief, each grappling with their own sense of loss and despair. For Charlie, the absence of his mother was like a gaping wound that refused to heal, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the cruelty of fate. But amidst the darkness, there was a glimmer of hope. In the quiet moments of reflection, Charlie found solace in his faith, turning to prayer as a source of comfort and guidance. With each whispered plea, he clung to the belief that somewhere out there, someone was listening, someone who could bring light to the darkest corners of his world. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Charlie's father began to unravel, his grief manifesting itself in ways that were both familiar and unsettling. What had once been a fondness for the occasional drink soon escalated into a full-blown addiction, leaving Charlie to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. It was a burden that weighed heavily on Charlie's young shoulders, forcing him to grow up far sooner than he should have. With each passing day, he found himself shouldering more and more of the responsibilities that had once belonged to his parents, from paying the bills to putting food on the table. Yet, despite the overwhelming weight of his circumstances, Charlie refused to succumb to despair. With each new challenge that arose, he faced it head-on, drawing strength from the love and resilience that had been instilled in him from a young age. In the midst of his struggles, Charlie found refuge in the familiar rhythms of daily life, from the comforting routine of school to the camaraderie of his friends on the baseball field. It was in these moments of normalcy that he found fleeting moments of joy, reminders of the beauty that still existed in the world around him. But beneath the surface, Charlie grappled with a sense of isolation and longing, yearning for the stability and security that had been ripped away from him so suddenly. As he navigated the complexities of adolescence, he found himself grappling with questions that had no easy answers, from the nature of grief to the meaning of faith. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, there was a glimmer of hope. In the quiet moments of solitude, Charlie found himself turning to prayer once again, seeking solace in the belief that there was a higher power watching over him, guiding him through the darkness. As the months passed and his father's addiction worsened, Charlie found himself facing an impossible choice, to continue down the path of despair or to find the courage to confront his demons head-on. With each passing day, he found himself drawing closer to the answer, a beacon of light amidst the darkness that threatened to consume him. In a moment of clarity, Charlie's father acknowledged the destructive nature of his addiction and made a commitment to seek help. With the support of his family and community, he embarked on the difficult journey of recovery, confronting his demons and striving to rebuild his life. For Charlie, it was a moment of redemption, a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness that had threatened to consume him. As he watched his father take the first steps towards sobriety, he felt a sense of pride and gratitude wash over him, a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the power of love to conquer even the darkest of demons. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Charlie found himself embracing the challenges that lay ahead with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. Though the road ahead would be fraught with obstacles, he knew that as long as he held fast to his faith and his family, he would never be alone. And so, as the sun set over the quiet streets of Century's Rest, Charlie looked towards the future with optimism and hope, knowing that no matter what trials lay ahead, he would face them with courage and resilience, guided by the threads of faith and love that had carried him through the darkest of nights. Chapter 2. In the quiet stillness of Mr. Bowditch's living room, time seemed to slow to a crawl. It was a space suspended between past and present, where memories lingered in the air like the faint scent of old books. As I stepped gingerly across the faded rug, I couldn't help but feel like an intruder in someone else's life, tiptoeing through the remnants of a world long gone. The room itself was a relic of another era, frozen in time by the weight of accumulated years. A floral pattern adorned the curtains, their once vibrant colors now muted by the passage of time. A small coffee table stood in the center of the room, its surface cluttered with scattered magazines and a tarnished ashtray, relics of a bygone era. Against one wall, a bookshelf sagged under the weight of dusty volumes, their spines cracked and pages yellowed with age. Despite the room's antiquated charm, there was an undeniable sense of loneliness that hung in the air, like a ghost haunting the empty spaces between the furniture. It was as if the room itself mourned the absence of its owner, the echoes of his presence fading with each passing day. I couldn't help but wonder about the man who had called this place home, about the life he had lived and the memories that lingered within these walls. What had brought him here, to this solitary existence? And what had kept him tethered to this place, despite the passage of time? As I explored further, my eyes fell upon a framed photograph on the mantel, a snapshot of a younger Mr. Bowditch standing proudly beside a sleek sports car. His smile was wide, his eyes alight with a sense of freedom and possibility. Beside him stood a woman, her arm linked with his, her smile radiant and full of warmth. They looked happy, carefree, a stark contrast to the solitary figure I had encountered earlier. I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for the man in the photograph, for the life he must have lived and the loneliness he must have felt in his later years. It made me wonder about the choices we make, about the paths we choose to walk and the sacrifices we make along the way. Leaving the living room behind, I made my way back to the kitchen where Radar waited patiently, her tail wagging ever so slightly as I entered. I couldn't help but smile at the sight of her, at the unwavering loyalty and companionship she offered despite the circumstances. As I prepared to leave, I made a silent promise to Mr. Bowditch and his faithful companion. I promised to check on Radar regularly, to ensure she was cared for and never left alone for too long. And as I stepped out into the cool night air, I couldn't shake the feeling that, in some small way, I had become a part of their story, a guardian of their shared solitude in a world that seemed to move too fast. The days that followed were a blur of activity as I settled into my new routine, but Mr. Bowditch's living room lingered in my thoughts like a half-remembered dream. I found myself returning to it again and again, drawn by the sense of history that clung to its walls like ivy. Each visit revealed new layers to the room's story, new details that hinted at the life its owner had lived. In the faded photographs that adorned the walls, I caught glimpses of a younger Mr. Bowditch, his smile frozen in time against the backdrop of a changing world. In the dusty volumes that lined the bookshelf, I found traces of his intellect, his curiosity about the world around him. But it was Radar who captured my heart the most, with her gentle eyes and loyal disposition. In her, I saw echoes of Mr. Bowditch's own loneliness, a silent companion in a world that had long since forgotten his name. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself growing more attached to Radar, more invested in her well-being than I had ever anticipated. I began to visit her more frequently, taking her for walks and spending hours in Mr. Bowditch's living room, sharing stories and secrets with her as if she were an old friend. And with each passing day, I felt the weight of solitude lifting from my shoulders, replaced by a sense of purpose and belonging that I hadn't known before. In Radar, I found a kindred spirit, a fellow traveler on the winding road of life. In the end, I suppose we're all just searching for connection in a world that often feels too vast and unforgiving. We cling to the memories of those who came before us, hoping to find solace in their stories, their triumphs, and their tragedies. And perhaps, in the quiet stillness of Mr. Bowditch's living room, I found a piece of myself, a reflection of my own longing for meaning and belonging in a world that so often feels indifferent to our struggles. As I sit here now, writing these words, I can't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the journey that led me to this place, to this moment of quiet reflection. And though I may never fully understand the mysteries of Mr. Bowditch's life, I take comfort in knowing that his legacy lives on in the memories we share, in the echoes of his presence that linger in this sacred space we call home.